All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, June 5th. Very important day. So before I even get things started today, a shout out to my wife. We are celebrating our 24th wedding anniversary today. And I hope she's watching and I hope she sees this. But I appreciate everybody that has messaged me and commented on the post today. So anyway, super special day. But even as well, we've got a great podcast with an amazing guest today, a good friend of mine. Let me introduce him here to the show. This is Frankie McConnell, who's been training in the martial arts for over 34 years. He holds a 6-dan master black belt in the art of American Tang Soo Do under the guidance of Grandmaster Dennis Ichikawa. Master McConnell has also trained in other arts and styles as well, such as Krav Maga, MMA, Jiu Jitsu, Arnis, Sambo, Muay Thai, and Kung Fu San Soo. Frankie is an avid athlete who started weightlifting in middle school, and in the summer, he would roof houses. By the time he was 19, he won his first bench press contest, and he is married, a proud father, and owner of Acton Karate and Krav Maga. So, Frankie, welcome to the show. Let's get fired up.
What's up? What's up? Hey, happy anniversary. That is
Thanks.
a huge accomplishment, and you guys are a wonderful couple, great family. Love it.
I appreciate it. That means a lot. And I'm excited to share your story today. And we'll talk a little bit about your kids and all the amazing things that they're doing and with your wife and your family. And of course, we're going to talk about martial arts. But first, if you are watching live, let us know who's out there watching. And if you have questions for myself or for Frankie as we're going along, anything that you want to hear about, make sure to comment. And if you can, share the video, go to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, Frankie, first thing I always like to ask every guest is, tell me a little bit more about your childhood and your background, just to kind of lead us into all the other good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories that you and I know together and a lot of stories that we don't know. Anyway, so I was born in Atlanta, Texas, grew up in Marshall, Texas. And had a brother or sister, parents, just regular small town, a little bigger than Acton, but small town family. Grew up in a school of five. At the time, it was a 5A school, 5A high school. And I think they moved back to 4A. But anyway, graduated high school at Marshall, Texas, 1984 graduate. And after that, went junior college a little bit. And that's kind of when I started competing with the weights.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more about growing up in Marshall. And the first thing that comes to my mind is the movie We Are Marshall. And was that anywhere near the time that you were in school or?
That was okay. The movie was made, recently in the past, 15, 20 years?
Yeah.
I don't know the date, but I think that was way back, man, super way back. But there's a college there, Wiley College. I think they call it a HBCU. I'm not sure, but it was a pretty famous college there. And actually, I think Denzel went there to film the movie, and a bunch of my movie buddies went over there too. It's kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah. We were Marshall.
That's just the first thing that popped into my mind when you talk about Marshall. But tell me, what was it like growing up as a kid in Marshall, Texas? You graduated high school, you said 84. So you're growing up there in the 70s, very different time. And of course, me being a California boy, like I only know California, and we'll talk about how things were different when you moved here too. But
right.
I mean, what was childhood like? What were things that you'd like to do before you got into weightlifting?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff. Well, both my grandparents had gardens, and one lived on one end of town, like the north end. One lived on the south end. So what did we do? We had bicycles. We rode bicycles everywhere. I mean, we wouldn't hesitate to ride on the highway. It was safe. People didn't have the distractions. We never had any problems. We rode bikes everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, as a kid, same thing, right? Like that was just like the thing to do too. When we were kids growing up, we didn't have our phones and we didn't have a whole lot of video games to play. We'd be outside playing, but riding bikes was like, that was my go-to. We would build jumps and ramps and all the
Oh yeah.
different things like that. So you would cruise all over on your bike. Now, I mean, did you play other sports? Were you an athlete as a kid before you got into weightlifting?
I did football from 5th grade until 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did track from 7th grade until I was a senior. But
Wow.
I missed a couple of years in high school, decided to be party boy for a little bit. And, you know, hindsight's 2020, probably shouldn't have done that.
Right.
But,
Now,
you know, when we were younger kids, we would, I would organize track meets for the neighborhood kids, and we would have our little track meets, and we would pole vault, and we'd go cut some cane poles down and pole vault over those and run. And it was just, you know, it was a great outdoor childhood.
yeah. What made you stop playing football?
You know, I just needed someone to push me.
Yeah.
Looking back, I remember wanting to quit, and my parents, they were super supportive of anything I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no matter what, I could go in, hey, let's do this, let's do that. They wouldn't actually want to do it with me right away, but they didn't push me to continue football, and I wish they would have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't we hear that a lot in the martial arts
Yes.
industry? You know, run into students that stop training, and one of the first things they always say is, I would have been a 1st degree black belt, or I would have been a 4th degree black belt if I stuck with it. I wish my parents wouldn't have let me quit.
Yes.
Right. So
Right.
now, and your son went on to play football in high
Yes.
school, right? He's
Right.
and he's graduating this year too, right?
Graduating this year.
So, and he
He was
played
the
all 4
captain
years.
of the football. He played all 4 years. He was captain of the football team and captain of the baseball team.
Dang. Now, do you think
Yeah.
he got that? I mean, did you kind of I don't want to say push, but did you plant those seeds early on, knowing that because you quit football, you wanted to make sure
Yes.
that he had that opportunity?
Yes. Football is my sport. He actually loved baseball a little bit more, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
My nephew, he likes football, you know, probably a little bit more. They're both awesome athletes. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that he got pushed. But you know, Mason's a different kid. He had not just the motivation, but the discipline to keep going. He loved the grind.
Mm-hmm.
He loved it.
Yeah.
He loved the practice. He's in heaven.
Yeah. And our kids went through this crazy time, right? Especially through having to go through COVID and all the stuff where I don't know if it affected him as much as maybe it did for us. I wish that Mason had a little bit more love for football and wanted to play. Like, I think COVID kind of messed with it, but then he fell in love with wrestling and kind of changed his focus. But yeah, you know, my point was, you stopped playing football in 9th grade, and sometimes the things that we do in life or the things that we don't do in life, and not that we try to live vicariously through our kids, but like, we want to help our kids not make the mistakes that maybe we made and help give them greater opportunity than we have.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. 100%.
So track was your thing, though. You did track all the way through high school.
Yeah. I skipped 2 years. I skipped 10th grade, 11th grade.
Oh, okay.
My dad would always say, I think you got your driver's license too early, because as soon as I got my driver's license, I was gone, running the roads. It didn't matter if it was a motorcycle or my truck. I was on the roads. And so I didn't do track during 10th and 11th grade, and came back senior year, did track.
And what were your events?
So I'm going to let you take a wild guess, knowing that I'm not an avid runner.
Right.
I'm okay at sprinting. I'm not the fastest. I'm quick.
Uh-huh.
So,
well, I'm thinking that, like, I would think that you would do shot put or something.
that's what someone else guessed the other day.
Yeah. Well, because
That's
you're
cool.
strong, right? I mean, I just
That's
think
probably yeah. No, I was pole vaulter.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was quick. I could get the pole. I could run down quick, and you know, I had good upper body strength, but I wasn't super fast. But they let the shot, you know, in Texas, you got to rewind to Texas 1980s. If you're 6 foot tall and 250, you're going to get the job no matter what. And so if you're under 6 foot and, you know, I was probably under 160 in high school. You have to fight a little bit harder to get the spot. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a little bit of, I didn't realize that that diversity actually helped me, because I feel like I've always been an underdog, always been like, well, he's not a 6 foot
Mm-hmm.
5, 250-pound guy. So let's just see what he's got.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, did you have some good success with pole vaulting?
I got I placed a couple of times.
Yeah.
Not too bad. No first place. I did get some points in, well, because, you're on a team. So the track team, if they win, so I actually got enough points in the, what do they call it? The district meet, but I didn't get my letter jacket. So anyway.
No, so you didn't let her.
Yeah, didn't let her.
What were the requirements in order for you to let her?
I think they probably wanted you to do it it was probably all 3 years. Well, in high school for us, it was 10th, 11th, 12th. Now it's 9th through 12th.
Okay.
So I think probably because maybe I didn't participate in 10th or 11th, sophomore, junior, or yeah.
Interesting. So I mean, so you played football, you rode bikes a lot, pole vaulting, track. When did you get into lifting weights? When did that start?
Well, check this out. This is really funny. I was telling my nephew about this the other day, because he's getting info from like the Marines or whatever. So when I was in 3rd grade, there was this, we had newspapers. We didn't have,
Right.
So
You didn't
on the
look
back
on the
of the
internet?
magazine. Yeah, I didn't look on the internet. On the back of the magazine or the newspaper, whatever it was, it said, "Get big arms." I was like, that's what I got to have. At 3rd grade, I knew I got to get some big arms, right?
Yeah.
So you had to say that you were 18 to even get the info. And next thing you know, the Marines are sending me info, and I'm just freaked out as a 3rd grader, like, oh my God, the Marines are going to come get me. But it just turned out to be it's called a bull worker. It was like one of those stretch things that, I don't know. But anyway, that was kind of when it started. But when I was in middle school, I remember, athletics. So we signed up for football. So athletics included football, basketball, all the in Texas, your main sports are football, basketball, baseball. And I think that's it. That was it for us.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the wrestling. That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
That'd have been cool for weight classes. But anyway, I remember laying down on the bench press, and I couldn't push 50 pounds off of my chest in 7th grade. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. This is not how I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Went home, told my parents, hey, I need to have a bench press. And we had the concrete weights, and Dad was like, no, you'll play with it for about 10 minutes and that'll be it. And I'm like, we'll see about that. So here we go. Christmas Day. Here's my new bench press, and put it in the garage. And, I made use of that thing. Sure did.
Yeah.
So I would work out with my weights. Then I would go roof houses. So, had a little bit of spending money. Started getting some progress. Showing some little. We didn't know it was called gains then. It was called what was it called? I don't know.
Sun's out, guns out.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. We have the coolest sayings these days.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, so how old were you when what Christmas? How old were you when you got that bench press?
I'm gonna say probably 13, 14.
Okay, because I remember. I think it was my birthday. My 14th birthday, I asked for the same thing. I want a bench. I think, every teenage boy, right? Like you see the guys, and you're like, all right, I want a bench press set. And I remember setting it up. And I remember my dad, he's like, oh, let me test it out. My dad puts all the weight on it. I don't even remember how much weight, but he put like every weight that came with the set, and he just gets on and just reps out like, 15 or 20. I'm just like, whoa, that's super cool. And then I get on and put like one little weight. I'm like, trying to get it up, and I couldn't move it. And, it's funny but I didn't, after that, I was the guy that, you're going to get a weight bench and use it for about 10 minutes. And that's it. I don't think that I really used it all that much because, I was so focused on martial arts at that time that I didn't really hit the weights. I did a little weight training when I was in football and wrestling in high school for about 2 minutes, but that was kind of it. And I didn't really start hitting the weights until like my mid 20s, and now it's like one of my favorite therapies
Yeah.
every day is to go and just lift something, right? But
Yeah.
you got into it, 13, 14 years old, you start
Yeah.
hitting it hard, and then you start getting into bench press contests. So tell
Yeah.
me what that was all about, what that was like.
So since you said something about your dad, can I say something about mine too? This is kind of funny because down the road, after years, people would say, well, they would try to discredit me by saying, oh, well, your body style, you have it made easy or whatever. Doesn't mean I didn't work my ass off. I still worked my ass off. But anyway, so we get the bench press and dad gets down there. He can't do it. I don't know what we had on there, maybe like 80 pounds, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mom gets down there, freaking blows it up. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, oh my God, my mom is stronger than my dad.
Oh shit.
but physically he wasn't a physical guy at all. And so spiritually he's 120, but physically, yeah, he didn't have that. He didn't want to lift. He didn't want to, walk. He didn't do stuff like that. He walked, he was a photographer, so he had to go do stuff. But anyway, back to what was your question about the bench press contest?
Yeah. So when did you start getting into bench press contests, and what was that like for you? That do you remember your first time in a competition? What was that like?
Yeah. Okay, so there was a little gym. There was a gym that we joined. It was called OJ's Gym. The guy's name was Jamie Martin. He worked for a little hardware store, and he had a bunch of free weights, and he had them in a little storage building. Same buildings that you see, that you put your RV in. I mean, this storage building was like 8 by 12. So we worked out there. And there was this other one gym in the town. It was called Powerhouse. It was before, Powerhouse franchise or whatever. And that's where all the big guys worked out. My cousin Philip worked out there. Tommy Curtin, Greg Gay and I, Corey McGuire. I could probably name them all, but I'm not going to try to, because if they see this, they're going to be like, hey, what's up, dog? You missed. You forgot me. But what was weird about it wasn't weird, but poor Powerhouse, the owner wouldn't let anyone else in. I mean, he had his 15 or 20 guys, and that was it. He didn't have anybody else. And these dudes were huge. Well, one day, Powerhouse, I don't know why I'm going to say porterhouse. I'm thinking steaks, right?
Steaks.
So Powerhouse closed down because it was like a little old firehouse building, whatever. But these guys come to work out with us, and we're just like, holy shit, these freaking guys are huge. So we started learning, how to cheer people on, just like, come on, push it, do this. And then the next thing you know, we're starting to get some size on our own. One of the guys, Greg Gay and I, you could see him to this day. He's still, most of those guys are still in really good shape. Mm-hmm. And they're just a little bit older, so they're probably closer to 60. But anyway, Gay and I kept up with the contest, and there was a bench press contest in Garland, Texas, which was close to Dallas. And we thought, hey, let's check it out. We're getting strong. We could probably do it. We were getting, we were little teenage, Bobby Ford and I, Robbie Chandler, we were just around 300 pounds at bench press. And I was 19, they were 18. Mm-hmm. So we go to the one. And so it wasn't a weight class because it was all teenage. So somehow there's a formula that you use to divide up, I don't know how strong you are pound for pound. Mm-hmm. And I got first place. I did a bench press of 355 pounds. My friend Bobby got, I think he got fourth. I'm not sure. Anyway, if he's listening, he could tell us. But yeah, we had it's called a lift shirt. You see these people with these shirts on, like they have squat pant, or it looks like coveralls or something,
right?
Or overalls. But anyway, this bench press shirt, it holds your arms out and it keeps, I don't know, but it helps for when you do the competition, you have to drop the weight and stop for a second. Mm-hmm. And then they say press. So if you're normally doing whatever your weight is, and you can just touch your chest and come up. So what the bench press shirt helps is it helps you stop and hold it there. It's almost like a knee wrap.
Is that what a slingshot is? Is that similar to what a slingshot is?
Maybe. Yeah. Thought about it. I brought that shirt today and showed it to you.
Yeah. Because I mean, I've seen the guys put them on, right? And it's real tight.
Yeah.
It's like kind of straight. And then
Yeah.
it just has that almost a support system, but it does kind of give you a little bit of stretch and go.
Yeah. I think the slingshot is the one they use for deadlifts.
Mm.
So the guy that designed these, his name is John Inzer. You can look him up, Inzer. I mean, I think he's got a record for deadlift at the 165-pound class. I mean, this dude, looking at him, you'd be like, yeah, he looks like he lifts weights, but I think I might be wrong about the weight, but I think he did like 600 or 700 pounds.
Yeah.
He's just a beast.
Wild.
So, but he's got those shirts. He's got those suits.
And you still lift. I mean, you're still lifting now, and I mean, you still like to lift heavy, right?
Oh, I love it. I love to lift heavy. I quit during COVID. Everything shut down, so dojo was shut down. I lost flexibility. I didn't work out, and then one day last year, my nephew said, "Hey, let's join the gym," and I was like, "What? Why didn't I think of that?" So we all three, me and Mason and Landon, started back.
Yeah,
and it's been great. It's just something I've missed for years.
Yeah,
it's just something that along with martial arts, because the martial arts helped me like with the breathing, because lifting weights, I was a little more anaerobic, where I would just, go there and we would lift just to get stronger. We'd lift, take 2, 3, 4 minutes in between sets. We weren't tired at all. So we're just getting stronger and stronger. But I'll be God, we were spending like 2, 3 hours in the gym. I don't have that time set aside for the gym these days.
Yeah.
So once I started doing martial arts, I was like, okay, well, I got the breathing's a little different. And then the rest between sets, I'm really quick. I do like 30 seconds, maybe a minute at the most. So it's a good combination of both. I love martial arts, and weightlifting is perfect for me.
Well, we're definitely going to start talking about martial arts here in a minute, but when it comes to weightlifting, like I said, I didn't do a lot of weightlifting when I was younger. I started to kind of get into it in my 20s, but where I really started to like, it just became part of my lifestyle was probably more in my 30s. And now it's like, I feel like if I don't go to the gym and get that weight therapy, like my day is just not the same. I spend about an hour in the gym in the morning, hour to hour and a half on the weights. And then I've been doing 2 a day. So I'll go back usually, mid-afternoon and hit my cardio session. And that's just kind of been a routine that I'm trying to remain as consistent as possible. But, something about lifting heavy, I don't know if it's ego. I don't know if it's like the testosterone pump or just whatever it is. But for me, having the headphones on, sitting at a weight bench, doing a couple reps, resting, going again until you feel like you can't move. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of things like it. I mean, I can think of one, but we won't talk about it right now.
Well, it's like the heavyweight or whatever weight, or you've either got to do the heavyweight and get those muscles to fatiguing, or you've got to get enough reps. And if you're down there, and I mean, what do they call it? Ultra? I don't know. There's a name for everything, right?
Yeah.
But, if you're doing like 25 to 30 reps, you probably just need to add some more weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the heavyweight too. It's just, your muscles respond to stress.
Yeah. Yep. Well, listen, hey, we got a bunch of people watching right now, but we haven't heard from them. You guys that are watching, if you have comments, first of all, if you're watching, just comment to let us know that you're there, who's watching. And again, if you have any questions that you want to ask for Frankie or myself, please do that. And again, share the video and go to YouTube and subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast. So I've been talking about weightlifting and kind of growing up as a child. You started to talk about your parents a little bit, and I know you got some siblings. So anything that you want to talk about real quick about, mom, dad, brother, sister?
Let's just leave them out of there. I'm the most important. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Sister, we were pretty close in we got closer as we got older. I was 3.5, 4 years older than her, so we didn't have the same friends. My brother, I was 9 years older than him, so it's almost like we all had our separate friends but the same childhood. but yeah, it's pretty traditional. We didn't have a lot of we had all we wanted, but we weren't spoiled or anything like that. So
Yeah.
there was something else he said. What was the other thing?
Not sure.
So I was just reading the.
Oh, well, Jackie's watching. My mom's watching. We got a
Oh,
couple
my
other
sister
people.
just
Who's
spoke up.
this?
My sister just spoke up. Let's see.
A much older girl. Hey, was she the one? Who was the one that commented earlier and told us? You said only you would know that story or something like that.
Oh, man. So I was born in Atlanta, Texas. That was our first babysitter. She only knows me and my sister. We called her. So her nickname is. One day she found me on Facebook and she goes, "I don't know if you remember me," and I said, "I remember someone named Bunny. Is that you?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's me." So I'm like, "Oh my God!" What's the trip about her is her mother was also her babysitter, and her mother would actually babysit my father, and she and my great grandmother, who I never met, actually sit and watched soap operas, is what they call them, and they would cry their eyes out. But Geraldine Murray goes back a long way.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well,
that's
so
cool.
you started to talk about when you were lifting weights, you did some roofing, and as my father built custom homes for all of my life, really, and my one of my younger brothers is also still in construction. So that's a tough gig, like
Yeah.
working construction, especially being on the roof. Like I hated the roof. Like it would, I don't like heights. And so being on a roof and then trying to walk the joist just like scared the shit out of me all the time. As a matter of fact, I remember we were doing a job. It was on my grandparents' house, and I was carrying plywood and I was walking the joist and I slipped.
Oh,
Well, when I slipped,
pucker
my
factor.
foot literally went through the drywall of the ceiling.
Oh, dang.
And I remember, dude, it split me right in the middle. I'm holding this piece of plywood, and it
Oh,
split me right in the middle. I'm like, oh, I wish I was wearing a
oh.
cup right now. But that was the worst thing ever, walking and roofing. But how
Yeah.
did you even get into that? I mean, was there someone in the family or a friend that?
Yeah, it was a church guy, a church friend. I had some there was a guy, his name is Mr. Yarbrough, and his son John and I were buddies. John was a little bit older, like a year older than me, so he would take us out, and that's kind of where we started our sports. He would take us out and train us, and we would run. And John was trying to out for the football team. I was 7th, 8th grade. John was, I think, 9th grade, but they ended up moving. But I learned a lot from them during that time. And John worked for a fellow at our church, Mr. Marsh. And when the Yarbrough family moved to Abilene, which I still think they're all there, I got the job. And I was so Flame, I was so weak I couldn't even carry a bundle of shingles up the ladder. But by that time, after the end of the first job, I could do the whole bundle. So
Nice.
yeah, so I just I liked it. It was physically demanding. When you're 14, 15 years old, 16, it's good money. And it's a tough trade. I did step up a little bit, and I kind of own my own company a little bit, and did painting as well. I probably should have kept on. I had electrical. I have a lot of, let's call them man skills, and I'm not afraid to tackle any project. In fact, during the COVID shutdown, I'm like, hey, let's build this. Let's take this apart. Let's fix this plumbing. Let's do that. So I got my guys, my son and my nephew. They got to learn a little bit during the COVID shutdown. So we spent our time wisely.
Well, I knew Jackie would still be watching, and she's like telling me to take note. So she's telling me to take note because here's the deal, right? Is that I worked on jobs with my dad a lot as a kid, mostly as a laborer, like digging ditches and carrying plywood and moving lumber and stuff like that. But I did learn a few skills. But man, to this day, I would sooner hire someone to do it than to do it myself. And here's why. This is why, because I know there are certain things that I could do, but I'm such a damn perfectionist on certain things. So like if I do a job and it's not perfect, I only have myself to blame. But if I hire someone to do it, like I could get them to redo it. And
Yeah.
Seth, stop it. Seth is right outside my window watching this right now. He's like, I can help. Seth is the one that comes over and does some of the things because I just won't touch it. But yes, I always make the mistake of doing a couple things. And Jackie's like, I didn't know you could do that. I'm like, yeah, I didn't want you to know that I could do that. Listen, like you said, it's a tough job. Construction, being on a crew is a tough job. It's very physically demanding, but in your perspective, right? You love lifting weights, you love doing heavy stuff, and there is something, being out in the sun, that was always nice, having a good tan when you're out roofing.
I had a good tan then.
Right. So now you took this throughout your teen years and you continued to do this. I believe you continued to do this until you moved here to California.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's funny is like when someone hears that I did roofing or painting, I've done some roofing and painting jobs out here as well. It's cool. And me on the flip side of it is I probably should have learned to hire someone to do things. I'm willing to try any of it. And I'm kind of like that with my classes. I'm like, I teach all my classes because I want to, and I probably should back off a little bit and let someone else do something.
Yeah. It's a hard balance sometimes, right? Well, let's talk about, so at what point did you get involved in martial arts? Because you started martial arts way before you moved here to California.
Yeah. So, this is a family show, right? So I have to kind of keep it
somewhat PG. I mean, it's,
okay, got it. So, so growing up, we had George Foreman. He was a family friend. We watched him do boxing out at his ranch. It was kind of cool. It was a sport. Rick Bell had a freaking awesome, it was before its time. Rick Bell had this awesome dojo. It had a gym, and he had his little kickboxing and his taekwondo. He had an awesome little setup. I'm not sure how well he did. I know that he went off, and I think he worked for one of the consulting companies or something like that later on, but I think he's somewhere down middle of Texas, and he plays in a band now. But yeah, he had a pretty awesome place. And so I had guys like that. He would go do kickboxing. What do they call them? Just like not meats, but kickboxing
smokers.
You could watch them fight. Yeah. And it was cool because Rick Bell was a constable, which was like a sheriff, and Dickie Jordan was a fireman. And so those guys, I don't know if they ever fought, but we had guys like that we'd watch and go do stuff. And finally one day my buddy got me a private lesson at the local Tang Soo Do Muay place, and I took it with my brother. And my brother, he got it. He could do the turn on the end of basic form 1 or whatever. And here I am, I can't do it. He could do the turning heel kicks and all that stuff like first week. And he didn't stick with it, but I had to because it was a little bit more of a struggle for me. And we gained some belts. We had some good master instructors in surrounding areas. There was a dojo in Marshall, Carthage, Henderson, Texas, Longview. So we would just bounce from one to one so we could train almost every day. And then somehow we ended up not being able to continue. And at that time, I think this was like 1990s, like early 90s, I had a gym in Marshall, and the square footage was like 7,500 square feet. And it just seemed like so much money. It was like $450 to pay the rent.
Could you imagine?
Right? I would love to have a place that's 7,500 square feet. So I had talked about OJ's gym earlier. Jamie Martin, I had leased his equipment from him, and it was just a bunch of free weights and machines he had made. You would not believe some of the stuff there was nothing purchased. It was all like manufactured by East Texas guys, right?
Right.
So me and my friend Anthony, he might be on here. He's Ant-Man, by the way. Our friend Anthony and I trained together, and we put a little dojo in the corner of the gym. Built a little wall, had some carpet, did our practices. I tried to learn the forms, did the sparring, did a little bit of grappling before we even knew what it was. And I was visiting my sister in Hawaii, and I had a black belt magazine, April 93. Flip it to the back of it. And of course, anything Tang Soo Do caught my eye, right? Back of the magazine, Chatsworth Karate, Mark Cox. I'm like, what? He's got a black uniform on? I got to call this guy up. So I'm like, 818-772-2467. Yeah, hey, Mr. Cox. Oh my gosh, he answered the phone. We just hit it off, and I told him the story. I'm like, hey, we want to switch over to American Tang Soo Do. Is that Chuck Norris? He goes, well, he can tell me the story.
Right.
And he said, yeah, you're welcome to come out. So this was, I want to say it was in early 93. Well, the magazine was April 93. So it was probably somewhere summer when I called him.
Mm-hmm.
And we had planned on coming out. I don't know. To drive 1,300 miles is kind of a, you kind of have to plan ahead. So long story short, sorry, it's a long story.
No, keep going.
My father-in-law would say, the earthquake happened in was that January 94?
Yeah.
The North Ridge.
Yeah, I think it was early. Yeah.
So we kind of lost. We're like, oh shoot. When you hear that in Texas, you're like, oh my gosh, did California just drop off on the ocean? So we're like, we can't find Mr. Cox anywhere. Where's Mr. Cox? And we hooked back up and ended up coming out that, what was that, March 19th, or that week of. And that's when I met you, and that sidekick got me right here.
I remember. So I'm glad we're kind of going back down memory lane a little bit, because that was the first time that you and I had met. I was actually testing for my second degree for the second time, because I had already tested with Mr. Ichikawa, but at the time I was teaching for Mr. Cox, but I wanted to get a number with Mr. Cox, so I tested, and then he told us, oh yeah, we got these boys from Texas coming out. They're gonna let's see what they got. Let's see what they can do, and that was the first day that I met you. Now, something you said earlier, though, I wanted to touch on really quick, is you were talking about when you and your brother started training, and how your brother picked it up really fast. He was pretty good at it, like right out of the gate. And you struggled, and you really had to work at it. And we see this in our schools a lot, and we see this in our own lives with different things, is that people where things come kind of easy don't necessarily appreciate it as much. Whereas those that have to work a little harder, because I was more like you, like I wasn't a super athlete at all. As a matter of fact, I was really kind of a shy kid, not really physical, although I came from a family of 3 boys, so we were always kind of roughhousing. But like karate didn't come super easy to me. I had to work at it a lot more, and I always appreciated it so much more because of that. I think it's kind of that, you see that little bit of progress, and you grow. I've watched students in my school that it's come super easy. They get their black belt, they're a super good black belt, and then they're kind of gone, and you're like, well, they're like, well, it just, you can tell it just wasn't as challenging for them anymore. And I just think that, we see that happen a lot. Now, before we get back to that story, 94, how you started Chatsworth Karate, you talked about bouncing around to different schools, and training. Did you ever train with like the same instructor for a long period? Because going from, white belt to first degree, or first GUP red belt at that time, because we didn't even have a black belt candidate belt. You get to first GUP, like, did you get those ranks from lots of different people, or all under the same person in the same lineage?
No, it was the same person, same lineage. So all of those schools, they were all Tang Soo Do Muay schools.
Okay.
They were all.
So it's like like an organization.
Yeah, an organization. It would be like, if we were all closer, and I knew when your guys come out and train them, how we've done it before. But this would be like more. It may have been a problem. We kind of felt like that our local guy didn't care for that too much. But say we're practicing at Gene's place, and we're like, we want to go get a little more challenging with our combinations or our forms, we go to Master Pull.
Mm-hmm.
We want to go down there and get a little more philosophy, we go to Master Duncan in Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we would train in those different places, but they were all under the same
well, and
umbrella.
we had this with the Alliance, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the Alliance,
right.
like you wanted to work on forms, you would train with Mr. Ichikawa. You wanted to hear about philosophy, you go train with Conrad Ercolano. You want to work
Right.
self-defense and breaking, man, you go and you see Mr. Cox, right? You know, Rio Altai was the first person that I remember that brought in, you know, Hapkido and Jiu Jitsu at that time, right? So
man, I miss that guy.
Lots of dude. He still messages me on birthdays, and he'll probably send me a message today since it's our anniversary. But yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
We still keep in touch.
Yeah,
a lot of Facebook messages here and there.
Yeah, a lot of those messages too. He does keep in touch. And last time I talked to him, he gave me a call New Year's Eve. It was really cool.
Yeah,
I always try to take his call. A lot of times I'm not available, but then you know, you're going to hear about it.
The time difference is so different, right? Well, I mean, you know, talk about like going back memory lane and having, you know, good times and good memories. I mean, you know, we had me, you, Conrad, Rio, like we had for a while, we had like some, you know, some good trips and good, I remember, you know, the Big Bear trip. Was it Big Bear?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. Doing Basai like outside.
Right.
That's a story for another time. But yeah, definitely some good memories. But okay, so you did train. Did train with like kind of the same organization, the same person up to First Cup. You found Mr. Cox through Black Belt Magazine, which is funny because, you know, Mr. Cox talks about, he has a story talking about how he met his Terry Brumley, his mentor, through seeing him come out in Black Belt Magazine. So Black Belt Magazine was like the thing back then. Like now, there's not really a magazine. It's all the websites or the Facebook pages. But anyway, and you come out, you tested in 94. Right. And then, by the way, what was testing like in Texas? Like Texas was known for the rough, tough, blood and guts era, at least in the early, you know, 70s and early 80s. That's Mr. Ichikawa would tell us stories about that all the time. Is that something you remember about training in Texas?
You know, that was probably what wasn't there with the Muay guys. They did like a no contact thing. And so we would go on our own. That's why I had the gym. Rick Bell had his contact kickboxing. You know, there's a couple of guys that were from there that would come and spar with us. So we had to do ours outside. So that was one of the things that had turned me away from that organization. I was like, how are you going to learn how to fight if you're just, you know, if it's all focus punches? And so when I met you guys, I was like, I'm at home. This is exactly what I need. You know, we're here for the contacts. You know, we want to see what works, what doesn't. And Anthony kind of set me up because he was good at forms. Yeah. He was good at fighting. He was just phenomenal martial artist. And I struggled. I was stiff. You know, I was never flexible. And he would say, I would always say, man, Anthony's forms are so good. And then he said, oh yeah, Frankie likes to spar. And I was like, man, you better watch out. You're about to get my ass kicked out here.
Well, you definitely went from a no contact form of sparring with the Muay, and then coming in Chatsworth, the complete opposite, totally opposite, right? Where it's all contact and every, you know, didn't matter who you sparred with, whether back then, you know, it'd be Nathan Carlin, Bo DeRocher, I think Travis Kemmer was probably still around, and some of the other, you know, boys from the early days. But yeah, and Mr. Cox loved it. He would thrive off of that, right? Just watching everybody go at it, and you know, he would love to get in the mix as well. So come out
after that, I learned Meekin lived out here in Quartz Hill. So he'd come out here and kick my ass on Friday nights. That's when the skill set came up, you know?
Now, so tell me how Acton Karate came about, because I remember at one point, the Andersons owned Acton Karate. They had approached a couple of us at the time, I remember. As a matter of fact, Dana Vinson, myself, and I think there was one other person that they approached, and they wanted to sell the school. And I was not in the position at that time. I was teaching at every school in the Alliance and didn't really have the plans or the means to run a school yet at that point. Although I started my program in 94, I think, at the park.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so you come out to Chatsworth. Did you go back to Texas and then come back again, or what? How did that all transpire and work out? Because I know you and Mr. Cox went in together or something like that.
Yeah. So went back to by that time, Anthony and I had another little dojo in a different spot. I had closed my gym down in 90, whatever, 91, 92. Didn't make it. It wasn't nice enough. It wasn't the thing. It was too hardcore. Anyway, so me and Anthony go drive out to California, have a great time. He hated it. He hated the earthquakes. Go back and we start teaching. We got like 5-6 students. I still had my roofing gig going on. Had a phone number. I couldn't get 935 chop, but I got 935 belt. And one day Mr. Cox called me. You know, we kind of kept in touch. You know, how's it going out there, whatever. And he said, hey, I got this opportunity. Do you want to run the school out in Acton? And I'm like, where the hell is Acton? And that's actually on bumper stickers. It wasn't my creation, but that's just a normal thing. People say, where the hell is Acton? So he goes, oh, yeah. So it's in a warehouse. Okay. So I'm thinking warehouse. All right. I can do this. 7,500 square foot, maybe. I don't know. And he's like, no, it's more like a garage. I'm like, oh, shoot. So, you know, come down and I'm just like, oh, my God, I quit my job for this. But when school ended, the school was just down the street. Kids, I mean, it was just like a mob. They just flocked to the school. I'm like, holy crap, this is freaking awesome. And I didn't know the curriculum, the ATSD curriculum. So I would take, you know, like a piece of paper and like go over it, like, oh, what is this? You know, but so I kind of struggled with that for the first, I don't know, year or so. And within a few months, I just needed a new place. And I wanted to move into a new building. Ended up renting a space from the local gym, which was in the Santiago Square where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. And the building that I'm in now, I've had since late 1995. So I didn't have the credentials as a school or as a business. So the landlords, the Watt family, pretty much handshake, here you go. And I'm still here.
Wow. So it's been since 95.
Yeah. Oh, I started teaching we call it the garage or the barn. I started teaching in the garage June 1994. So 29 years this month.
I remember the barn because at the time I was teaching at Tia Westlake Karate under Mr. Ichikawa, and EJ Bucant and I were running a demo team at that time. And I think, you know, this was before you even came out. Mm-hmm. I remember going out to do a demo for, I think it was their belt presentation or something. We brought our demo team out there. Cool. But like we had practice on Mr. Ichikawa's mat, which was like a 20 by 20 or a little bit bigger at that time. And then we go and there's, I don't know, 8 to 10 of us performing. And I'm like, it's not, I don't even know if it was 12 feet by 12 feet. It
was small.
It was super small. And I'm like, how are we going to do this? We figured it out. So made it happen. But man, 95, that's a great, success story of longevity. Right now, tell me about some of the struggles that you faced as a business owner. And we don't have to talk about COVID because we probably beat that horse to death and how that affected our business. Right. But what are some of the struggles that you faced as a business owner, as a martial arts school owner? What have some of your challenges been, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Yeah. So, I wanted the building, and I didn't have the, the credentials to get a lease or whatever. And we had a meeting. Mr. Cox came out. We had a meeting, and he wanted to know how the meeting went. And I was like, well, it went all right. Some things were said, and he was like, well, you could just have it if you want it. I'm like, all right. He goes, I'll always be here if you need some help. I'm like, okay. And he always has been. He's always been there. But that when I could deal with my own, it was a little easier to deal with my own finances than to have to be like, hey, Mr. Cox, can you help me get a building, whatever. Everybody's got their own, it's better if everybody just works on their own deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then the curriculum, it was kind of tricky, trying to learn the differences, whatever. I always looked different with my forms or whatever than everybody else. So during the shutdown, I retooled myself. I redid all the curriculum. It's purely self-defense now. Self-defense and fighting. Self-defense, fighting, grappling. And I'm still trying to it's always been tough to get coaches out here. I had a jiu-jitsu coach for years. He lived here.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in like 96. He was a really cool dude. Lyndon Coleman. He's still one of my buddies. But it was cool to have him out. I learned a lot from him. And Slava came out a couple of times. It's just so far out that, it's not somewhere you could just drop off in the next 10 minutes. You have to plan to come out,
Mm-hmm.
fight the traffic. So, getting coaches like that. I found a Muay Thai coach. I'm not real sure if I want to add that or if I want to do that, but I am pretty interested in the BJJ. I might go down to Prager's.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just see. We'll just
Yeah.
see what the schedule allows.
Well, I know that's always been, being part of the alliance for you. That was always kind of one of the hardest parts for you is that
Mm-hmm.
you were out in Acton. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
else was in the San Fernando Valley or in Ventura County, right? And
Right.
and if I, going out on a limb and saying that maybe you kind of felt like an outsider for a little while because you didn't, when Mr. Ichikawa would need someone to cover classes, like everybody's kind of right there. Mr. Cox
Mm-hmm.
needs someone to cover classes and everybody's kind of right there. It's Mr. Fujitani and I, right? Brian Fujitani, he and I, really great friends since high school. I know he came out and was teaching for you a little bit, making the trip out. And I've had the opportunity to come out and do a guest. It's been way too long, but like I remember coming out, but that's always been hard for you because you feel kind of feel like you're on an island, right? But now we've got a couple more schools out your way with, like you said, Patrick Prager, and then John Vaverka. How far are their schools from you now? They're both in Santa Clarita. So
is John, is he which one is that?
John's a Krav instructor, Citadel.
Okay. Oh, Citadel. Okay. Yeah. I haven't been there, but yeah, they're, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes away. So closer than anyone.
Yeah, a little closer.
So, yeah.
Now, let's talk just a little bit about how you've branched out in your training, right? You started with the American Tang Soo Do, then you started training with Mr. Cox. What we talked about some of the experience that you've had in these other systems and styles, self-defense being your thing, breaking has always been one of the highlights that I've enjoyed watching you with. What are some of the other things that you've done and branched out, not only for the physical part, but maybe the mental part or the business side?
Right. Well, business side, you, Mr. Cox, Bo have helped me out tremendously. We got a nice little, within our circle of friends or association, there's somebody for everything. When Bullock and McMeekin would come out, I got to do Arnis with them. It was kind of cool to incorporate that. I did 3 different organizations for Krav. I gained something from all of them. John Whitman, he's a phenomenal teacher. I learned a lot about how to create drills from him. I learned a lot about myself with Bo and Mr. Cox and Carlin at theirs. That was probably the last one I did. Yeah, but what's cool about martial arts, there's always a challenge. It's just like life. There's always challenges. And the cross training is just awesome. I think that's probably what I like the best about martial arts is the cross training, to be able to take things from, that's what people have been doing for years. Chuck Norris did it. Grandmaster Ichikawa did it. They train from other arts or whatever they want their system to look like. They've kind of created on their own. We're all kind of not guilty of that, but we all kind of do that.
Well, I think that's a huge benefit to our programs and to our schools, right? I still consider myself to be, in the younger group of school owners, but, because in the 60s and 70s, you were either a Japanese stylist, a Korean stylist, like whatever style you trained in, that was kind of like you just stuck with it. And then of course, you know, Bruce Lee, again, way before my time, but you know, Bruce Lee, you know, not adopting any one style or system, but you know, taking what works and discarding what doesn't. And then you have the invention of MMA, and you see, you know, how much cross training is so important. You know, the early years of UFC, it was more a tough man contest for the most part until like Jiu Jitsu became, you know, the Gracies come in with Jiu Jitsu, and that's such a huge part of it. And then you got like Matt Hughes that comes in as a wrestler, and then you've got all these strikers that keep upping their game. And I think what's awesome about all of the cross training is like you said, it just brings another challenge, right? You know, when you get your black belt in martial arts, I mean, so many people are hung up about getting a black belt, and it's like, you know, when I was younger, I think that I thought black belt was the end all, and people try to label black belt as an expert. And if I'm being honest, like a black belt really is just an advanced beginner. You know, that's when things really start to open up. I've been watching a lot of stuff lately. I get messages about, you know, how black belt is supposed to be so amazing and awesome, which it is a great accomplishment. But, you know, in the grand scheme of martial arts training, it's like the very beginning. It's
right.
But then we need to keep learning and keep growing and keep training. And that cross training, you know, definitely helps. You know, it opens our eyes and reminds us that, like, no matter how much you think you know, there's always more to learn. And, you know, if you open your mind and empty your cup a little bit, our students probably teach us the most on a day-to-day basis, right? Like, I mean, I can't tell you how much I learn just from my students, you know, about myself, about how to teach better, how to introduce things. So, yeah, I mean, there's just so much about it that that's why people can train in martial arts for literally a lifetime. And it truly is a lifestyle. It's, you know, I love soccer, baseball, football, you know, all the sports, right? Our kids played it. Your kids played them. My kids played them. I definitely believe in team sports, but like, you play football for a season and you're done. Then you go on to the next and to the next and to the next. But martial arts, you can continue to expand long term. So what are some of your present goals regarding martial arts, business, life? What are some of your goals on mind right now?
You know, a few years ago, well, let me go back. When you took me to like one of the first business Maya things, I think in 2007, I always had fitness as part of my journey in martial arts, but I didn't quite see the connection until maybe MMA came involved. I remember going down there, we're in Florida, we're training, they're like sprawl, and I'm like doing football sprawls, and I just loved it, the way I was able to put fitness back into my martial arts training. And so a little bit after that, we had an idea. We wanted to open up a gym and have the dojo on the side, kind of like what I had in Texas. And that's always been back in my mind. That's, you know, something I could see myself doing. I'd have to be in a different place, obviously, because Acton is just too small to support two gyms. We have a gym right here, right across the parking lot that everybody works out in, but I'd have to be in a different area, you know, somewhere with a higher population, maybe 15,000 people, you know, at least. I do like the smaller towns. I wish sometimes, I don't wish that Acton was bigger. I sometimes think it'd be a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it may be in a more volume area, might be more desirable.
Right. Well, now listen, before it was Acton Karate and Krav Maga, if I remember correctly, was it not Acton Karate and Fitness at one point?
You know, I bounced around with some names. It was so originally it was Acton Karate, and me and Mr. Cox named it American Tang Soo Do, and then I kind of went back to Acton Karate because it was easy to remember.
Right.
And then the DBA is Acton Karate, and I think the DBA is Acton Karate and Krav Maga right now. I was thinking Krav Maga would be something everybody would know, but they don't know that. Everybody knows what MMA is, and they know what BJJ is. So I didn't really want to do that. So
Right. Well, you've
Yeah.
always been, fitness has always been a huge part of what you do anyway. I mean, you've always had,
Mhm.
personal training clients, and you've always
Mhm.
been active in fitness. I mean, it's a good fit for you. I remember back
Mhm.
in I think, you said '07, or when we went to the Muay events, cage fitness became a big, that was the
Right.
big,
Yeah.
that was the next big thing after Taibo had kind of like
Yeah.
slowed down, or, you know, lost its traction a little bit. But I love that format, the 5 minute rounds and
Yeah.
alternating exercises and ground and pound and bag work. And
Mhm.
as a matter of fact, I still have a class on Thursdays. I call it
Oh,
combat
that's cool.
conditioning,
Okay.
which we do that. And with Krav Maga has really brought back the focus on fitness, because, as you know, like, even your white belt cauldron, which is only
Yeah.
24 minutes, is a
Right.
bitch. It's
Yeah.
super
Right.
hard, but it puts that focus on fitness and conditioning. Because, like,
Yeah.
how do you defend yourself if you can't go for
Yeah.
for a minute, 60
Exactly.
seconds, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Totally. It puts it all back into perspective. It's like I remember I still have the cage bags.
Mhm.
What? Shoot, lost my train of thought. I'm finally it happened.
Right.
Coffee wore off. I guess I don't know.
Senior moment. Senior moment.
Yeah. Right.
Well, listen, we're right about at an hour now as it is, and I like to kind of keep it right there. So it's been awesome just catching up and telling old stories, and actually
Yeah.
learning a lot. Some of the things I didn't know so much about your childhood and living in
Yeah.
Marshall and
Yeah.
pole vaulting. So that's super neat. I hope that
Yeah.
everybody has enjoyed watching this with us as we've just kind of had this conversation for the last hour. Once again, would love to hear your feedback. What was your favorite part of today's chat with Mr. McConnell? And of course, again, one more time, make sure to go to YouTube and subscribe to Master Motivation Podcast, because we got some great guests coming up over the next several weeks and throughout 2023. So, Frankie, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks for
you.
inviting me.
You've always been a great friend, and someone, we're always Snapchatting each other and sending
Yeah.
messages. And
Yeah.
sometimes I want to kill you when you send me those steak barbecue Snapchats. I'm like, dude, stop sending me the food. I'm hungry. Like, it looks too good.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, I appreciate how our friendship has continued
Yeah.
from that first time in '94 to
Yeah.
several excursions that we've had together and time with
Right.
family. So yeah, just thanks for everything, man.
Yeah. Thank you too.
Well, guys, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next time.